So welcome everybody. This is our bug user group meeting, our last bug of the fall semester 2023. We won't have our speaker series again until the spring of 2024. So those of you that are not bug leaders in here, just be aware that we will pick up again in the spring of 2024 and have the leadership or the speaker series. Tonight we have RJ Palis here. He's one of our industry partners for the bug user group. And so we're very pleased that he can round off our speaker series this semester. And so RJ is coming here from AECOM. He's the digital technology manager there. And so maybe RJ, you could just say a little brief intro on maybe what you're going to be talking about, and then we'll have Carrie introduce himself and maybe Justin too, since you guys are all professionals.
Sure. Yeah, so RJ Palis, digital technology manager for AECOM-Hunt. I've been with the company about 2 years now. Been with the industry over closer to 20 years at this point. And I'm currently working on Intuit Dome, which I'll share a little bit about that, about my role, sort of a day in the life, and then we'll jump into setting up a Bluebeam project, and then a Bluebeam studio, and then sort of everything after that. So
awesome. Thanks RJ, and we're so happy to have you here. And Carrie, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. My name is Carrie Rentz. I'm a senior project manager for Querying General out of Fresno, California. Been with Querying for a little over 8 years, and probably in the industry for somewhere around, I don't know, teenager, 13 or 14 years, something like that. So yeah, been part of the group since I don't know, creation, I guess.
Yes, very much so.
Always happy to be here when I can. So,
and Carrie, you want to share your most interesting news that you have?
Yeah, so Querying is gonna we just won the first phase of the new student housing project out at Fresno State. So I will be running that myself along with my superintendent that I'm currently working with here in Bakersfield. So we'll probably be kicking that off towards the end of fall 24. As long as everything goes good, we get into the construction contract. But right now we're just starting a pre-con. So our pre-con team is handling that, and I'm kind of assisting in the background with it. So yeah.
And that's awesome, Carrie, especially for this group too. I think, you know, you've been just a big proponent of this group, and so to know somebody that's going to be working on a major project on campus is just awesome.
Yeah. So it'll be a lot of fun.
Very exciting. Yeah, for sure. And Justin, do you want to introduce yourself and just share a little bit about what you're doing out on Intuit Dome?
Sure. So I started on a project, maybe a year and a half ago. And basically, I'm in charge of the Revit modeling for the DAS systems.
Oh, awesome, Justin. And so which company do you work for?
Fullerton Engineering.
Fullerton. Okay. I don't think I've heard of Fullerton. Where are they out of?
They're in Chicago.
Oh, wow. So you're here. Are you in California, or are you in Chicago?
Oh, no, I'm actually in Ohio right now.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. Well, I'm in Wyoming. So we're we're spanning the US here tonight for sure. So that's awesome. Well, welcome. And we've got a couple of students in here, and we'll probably get some more. And so just a little housekeeping for those of you that have never come to a bug meeting before. If you have any questions, feel free to just jump in. I think RJ's used to doing this. He's done a few of these. And so just jump in and ask some questions, or you can post them in the chat. We'll keep an eye on the chat. And then make sure that you put your first and last name in the chat, and we'll take roll and let the professors know that you've come, in case they're going to offer you extra credit. I can't assume. I know my classes, I do give extra credit, but I will get the information to the other professors as well. Okay. So just a little quick plug here, and I will actually show it at the end as well. But we are going to be doing a winter recruitment for our bug user group. And so we've got a few seniors that are going to be graduating out of the bug user group. And so we've got a winter recruitment where we're going to, typically we do it in the winter where we have mentors, mentee, newer students that are coming in the spring, and then you serve for a whole year from 2024 to 2025. And so some of you may that are in here that are not a part of the bug user group, I put a little flyer together. Let me just share that. But oh, it's not sharing. Hold on one second. Right there. Okay. You can contact me. My email address is here. I'll also put it in the chat if you're interested in coming on as a bug leader and shadowing in the spring, which is a little bit less, you know, commitment, but you're kind of learning, and then you go for the full commitment for the year from fall until 2025. Okay, so but we are doing that. We always do a winter recruitment. So let us know, and I will follow up with this at the end. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to you, RJ, and you can get started. We got Nanad coming in here. So hi, Nanad. He's just getting set up. So let's go ahead. I'm going to turn it over to you, RJ, and feel free to get started. And I'm here to help you if you have any problems with your audio or share screen. So
Okay. We can still record. I'm just gonna talk a little bit about the company, my department, like 5 minutes, and then once I start sharing the 3D models here, we'll probably have to
turn off the recording.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. So let me share my screen. Hello everyone. Thank you. I do appreciate you guys coming in. I know you see me every week, and it's a little it's comforting that I've kind of gotten used to the faces and the names, so I won't be as nervous as I've been in the previous times that I presented. So and thank you, Justin, for showing up. I appreciate it, and I do hope that everyone here can learn something from this presentation. So let me know if you guys see my screen. Okay.
Yeah, we're good to go. You know, if you want to switch it to presentation mode too, you can do that.
I'm gonna toggle.
Sure.
I'm just gonna toggle between.
Sometimes it's easier. I know that from
I know.
class too.
And it's sort of an informal kind of group here, but I do want to just kind of go through these slides here. Like I said, I still have the old date when I last came, so that was March. So I am part of the digital technology team. We are sort of under the umbrella department called Building and Construction Technologies. Just a little background about AECOM-Hunt. It was founded in 1944 in Indianapolis. That's still the headquarters of Hunt. It was acquired by AECOM in 2014. So it is probably one of the last acquisitions by AECOM. And so we Hunt is comprised, or the CM group, construction management group, is comprised of AECOM Tishman, which was acquired a long time ago by AECOM, and then Hunt, and then also now there's a smaller outfit out in the East Coast called LBG. We do have offices in 9 locations, including here in Los Angeles. And like I said, Indianapolis is the headquarters. There's offices in Dallas, Phoenix, Nashville, San Francisco, Cleveland, and Chicago. Just a little bit about our team. We are headed by Ricky Guevara. He is the director of DT. We call it DT for short. And then we got ourselves here on the group over at California. We had JB, myself, David Ortega, who now leads the coordination efforts at Intuit Dome, along with Shri, who's also a VDC or digital technology specialist on the project. So both of them and myself are on Intuit Dome. We got Haley Punchal. We got Nick Gotsis. He's sort of the visualization manager. We'll kind of touch on that in a little bit. Balaram Italo, and our newest hire, Catherine, over at Dallas. So this is the Western division for digital technology. Now we've been rebranded as digital technology because in today's environment, there's the digital technology or digital aspects of construction that is sort of transitioned to digital aspects. We're not looking so much into paper drawings anymore, and other technologies that have come up in the last I want to say 20 years since when I started. A lot of improvements, I guess you want to call it that. Now our director sort of created these 4 pillars in digital technology, and what is usually what we're kind of known for is BIM, the VDC. When you're in the project and you ask if there's a BIM guy or a BIM girl involved in the project, that's usually, this is our primary pillar, and this is where BIM management, BIM coordination, creating BIM contracts, that's what we're sort of known for. But we are also known for creating visuals, either for presentation, for getting jobs, building sort of relationships. We do these visualization efforts. You kind of see, I call it Hollywood BIM. That's the cool stuff, the pretty stuff, that you see out there on videos. Drone technology, laser scanning, scan to BIM, AR, right? Ninad's big on AR and VR. So that's all the visualization sort of aspects of DT. And then there's also digital delivery, and this is more on the workflow sides, where we create the project strategy, common data environment management, or CDE, advanced workflow and processes that include that digital tools are right in the middle of those processes. And then lastly is the last pillar is data insights, and sort of developing insights based on the data that we acquire during any project, right? Sort of putting that in a dashboard, creating some analytics behind it. That's sort of the goal of this last pillar. And then lastly, just the technology we're using out here on Intuit Dome. We are using Bluebeam, Revisto, which I'll show a little bit of the 3D model of Intuit Dome, and then ACC as our common data environment, which was a predecessor, or this is the newer version of BIM 360, as you see there. All right, so a couple of websites just for those that want to follow on Intuit Dome updates. I'll put this up on the chat later on, but if you type in buildintuitdome.com, you can get a lot of information about the project. There's also an Instagram and Twitter feed, and this is updated pretty frequently. So whatever you want to look at for Intuit Dome, the progress, you can certainly go to their Instagram page. So any questions before I move on to the 3D model, just for a quick preview? All right, Christy, so if you don't mind, if I can ask you to stop sharing.
Sure.
So, I think I kind of explained what we did, clash detection, managing the projects, but we're sort of versatile in that nature, that a lot of us come from different backgrounds. There are a couple of team members that were from estimating. I'm from the design side. David, as you guys know, he's from the subcontractor side or the trade side. So there's a lot of things that we're able to do, and not just clash elements. We do have a deep background in project management, and so we use a lot of those skills to kind of help our project team get connected with digital data. And so that's sort of our life. My daily task right now is to make sure digital implementation is goes smoothly during a project startup. And so whether we're suggesting certain solutions like using a common data environment, whether that be Autodesk, Procore, Bluebeam is automatically installed in all our computers because the company knows its value. So we evaluate all those digital technologies, and we also help with the implementation and adoption on a project site. So
And I'm just curious, just from a, project-based question, do you think that Revisto or, the whole umbrella BIM technology, in particular, this project has helped cut down on change orders over the life of the project?
I'm actually we're sort of nearing the end of this coordination, and so one of my thing is building up the data behind the process that we took on with BIM. So I want to say that it definitely helped with seeing the issues first in the model before encountering it on site. Now the metrics behind it and how many of those issues we caught, it's actually a very small portion of the overall project RFIs that were generated on this project. I can't say how many RFIs were on this project, but BIM played a very small role on finding out these issues, which means that BIM has to be sort of an industry accepted way to view a project. And that's the struggle of every BIM person out there that you talk to, is that it's hard to change culture on any company, especially if they're used to doing it a certain way. And so one of our major initiatives in the next 2 years is to really push for this concept called BIM to field, where we train and we inform people of the technology and really make that sort of center of how they look at issues and how to resolve it. If it's something that can be modeled or looked at in the model, that's something that we're trying to take on these sort of mega projects.
Yeah, and I can see, and I don't know, Carrie, you might be able to pipe in on this as well, that this kind of technology is obviously in the larger mega companies like AECOM, but I think our industry could greatly use this kind of technology in the future. But I don't think we're there yet in the smaller companies, if that makes sense. I think it's going to have to become more widespread, but I don't know, you seeing this, Carrie, from a project controls perspective, I'm like, oh, you could see some of the problems ahead of time and cut down on those change orders and get those RFIs answered a lot quicker. But it's the cost of the software, in a smaller company.
Yeah, I mean, it's twofold, right? So I would say there are some smaller companies that have adopted it. Sometimes, and it's an added cost to the budget of the project, right? So you have a client that might have a $20 million cap and they're more interested in getting more out of the building rather than in the design, and paying for that. And then, it's just like anything else. If only one person out of 5 actually embrace it, then that one person's going to be kind of leading the charge and everyone else is sort of going to be following, or they're going to want everyone to be at that same level. And if they're not, then they struggle because you have one guy using BIM and you have 4 others that aren't. I've recently, we run across this actually on this project is Mechanical did it all in BIM and it was great, but I hate to say that it kind of takes common sense out of some things because their BIM model showed something in a location different than every other spot on the whole entire job, and they just didn't bother to think about it if it was right or wrong. And then we ended up making them move it because it was wrong. And they're like, "Well, my BIM said that." I was like, "Your BIM put it in the wrong spot." You know what I mean? So, and they try to say, "Well, there's a change order," and it's like, "Well, no, you didn't do it right." So it's BIM's not perfect either, right? It definitely helps Clash, but I mean, you can accidentally move things in your models as well. So, but yeah, I mean, for larger jobs, I mean, you think about, I don't know what the budget would be on the Intuit Dome, but let's say 300 million.
It's
Something like
not
that,
enough.
right? Yeah, I would never see, right? I mean, and you start spending more money, right? So as the owner of the LA Clippers, there's going to be like, why am I going to spend another $50 million on BIM coordination in this when I need to start packing seats in, right? So to make this money back, they have interest on loans and all kinds of things. So it can be a little bit of a harder sell, but I mean, I'm in for it. If somebody's willing to embrace it and pay on that budget side of it, or you start making it part of the proposals to begin with, then everyone adopts it on the project, then yeah, it can help a lot. I've definitely used it for clash detection for sure. So in the past, but yeah,
I'd say smaller companies are a lot more nimble. Carrie too. Yeah, it's harder to change a culture in a big company like this one, and definitely with technology, it's a hard sell. But I've been on smaller, medium-sized companies where they give you the budget and they're like, do R&D and help us be better. So I think, two ways too is that I think it's easier to influence a lot more people in a small company, which I experienced myself before I moved on here in Hunt. So
but they gotta be willing to do it. They gotta put the money into it, and they gotta have somebody that actually is in their office. That's what they do, and yeah, it just depends. Younger generation, probably more adopted. You got the guy that's been doing it for 40 years already. He might be a little bit harder to sell.
Yeah.
Well,
and I
if he
think
sees the benefit and the return, absolutely. That's usually what people care about is the benefit and the return. So,
and I think, these guys and gals that are going out into the industry now, you're still going to see a real digital divide between people that want to really go and jump into this kind of stuff, and then some that are like, why are we going to use that? And so just be prepared for that. This comment is for like Ninad here. Ninad's probably going to want to work for a larger company that has the money to spend on technology, and work in that area where some of the smaller companies may not be able to afford it. And I think it's going to get, I remember when BIM was really, really expensive. I think it's still really expensive, but it was out of reach for some smaller companies. And eventually, it'll become more mainstream. But believe it or not, I would say that our industry is still very slow in implementing some of these really advanced technologies, unless you're working for an AECOM or a Turner or, a larger company.
what I want to add to that, Christy, is that our job, we're sort of software agnostic, and it just happens that AECOM has a deep pocket for expenses. But I think what I can kind of tell the group here is that we're information managers, and I think our main goal is to help the team. How do we help the team pass information from the office to the trailer? And because we have that technology background, we're not going to commit to just a software to say, hey, the software will resolve everything, right? There's processes that we have to put in place, standards, and we just use technology as a tool, but it's not always the answer to a problem. But it certainly is something that we can use to maybe help, right? And so for us, because we do have that technology background, we can suggest certain solution, but first we gotta work on the people, the process before we get into the tools. And so that's sort of we kind of keep that in mind when we're introducing technologies. Is first, who's the end user, who's going to use it, how are they going to communicate that between the office and the field, right? Like, how does that information flow look like? And so Bluebeam is very simple, yet it's effective because like maybe, you know, what I'll show today. It doesn't cost a lot, but you can get information from one point to the other without spending tons of money. And that's important for us because in this industry, we always got to have the latest information, right? And so for me, that's also part of our job, is to let people be aware of these workflow improvements.
Well, and I think too, you know, I mean, in Carrie, you're on some smaller jobs in comparison to the AECOMs of the world. But as a project manager, when you go out into the industry as a project manager, many of you will be project managers, you know, and you've got to wear kind of the digital technology hat as a project manager and try and determine what technology you're going to use on a job. And depending on the owner and the contract documents, they may specify that certain technology is supposed to be used. Like, for example, like a lot of jobs will specify that you have to have Oracle P6 on jobs. Eventually, it'll probably go to Oracle Primavera Cloud. They may specify that you have to use Bluebeam on the job, you know, but I think you're going to, it's like, some jobs are very specific. They're going to require you to use certain technology. And then other times as a project manager, you're going to have to determine which technology is going to work best for your.
Some still tell you have to fax things over to them too.
And
So
sometimes, yeah.
sometimes it takes about 40 years for their contracts to catch up to their technology, just so you know.
So
just saying.
It's
we
a
don't own a
challenge.
fax machine. Oh, we don't need that. That's fine.
And you might even have some old, really older superintendents that want to see hard copies of plans, you know?
I do. I like
Yeah,
my
I was
paper
gonna
copy.
say,
I'm sorry.
Carrie.
I pull out my Sharpies and I go for it, man. I work faster that way.
So yeah, be prepared.
But I do live in a digital age. I still do it as built online too. But I like that's how I process and think. So
yeah, you guys be prepared for it all and be flexible.
once size shoe doesn't fit all, right?
Yeah.
So it's again, it really depends on your client and project.
Yep.
So if it's specified that way, it has to be specified that way in the RFP, right?
Mhm.
And that adds money to the budgets, and that the hard thing is getting clients to understand that their budgets a lot of times aren't correct
Or realistic, maybe. Yeah, so that's another thing, I think an important thing to keep in mind. Like, I know as a consultant, when I go and look at plans and specifications, if they, because I'm a top technology person, if I'm a consultant going in and they require me to have like Bluebeam, or they require me to have Oracle P6, automatically, because the updates for those cost money, I always make sure that I include that in the budget, in my estimate, or, invoicing or task order, or if you're on a large job, your estimate when you do it. Because if you've got a job that spans 5 or 6 years, a lot of these technologies have updates that cost you that, amount of money for site licensing and stuff. So there's a lot of things that go into play when you're dealing with all these different technologies, and you've got to decide what you're going to be using,
Yep. But that doesn't need that you cannot negotiate certain things out of those contracts as well, right? It might say P6, you might say, is it acceptable to use projects? And they can come back and say yes, and we can save X amount of money, or whatever. There's always, I don't want to say accommodations that can be made. Yeah. There's always a negotiation. I mean, you may not get everything, but it's also one thing to think about is, as a company, if you're bidding a job or a program you don't use, and now you are forced to use it, you now have nobody on your company that champions that, right? So suddenly you have to learn BIM, or suddenly you have to learn P6, or you can find consultants, or you hire RJ and they consult for you on your company, you know what I mean? And they run your BIM for you. and they're your partner now, so there's other ways to do it too. So
Yeah, well, I think of that job. Well, it was the job that you did at the beginning of the semester where you hired that company to do the heat map,
Yeah.
on your job. And it probably was advantageous. It's kind of like when you're deciding, to bring out different types of equipment on a job, do you use the stuff that you own, or do you rent it because it's cheaper? Same thing with the consultant,
Yeah, it's the
Sometimes
same with BIM. People can hire some, folks out in the overseas or locally to do the BIM, like what Carrie mentioned.
Mhm.
Not every company has a dedicated VDC, I'd like to call it, in their company. So
California is real hot on the a DAS and emergency radio systems for the fire departments now, especially in big structures like the dome and parking garages, right? So you have to bring in companies that do pre-testing to find out how much of a radio signal you need and all that kind of stuff. So there's things you have to do in the field and in conjunction with your heat mapping and stuff like that too. So I've fallen in that trap before too.
And this is,
Talking about ERCs, Carrie?
Yep. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. You think you got a perfect plan, and then you realize, oh man, your wall is got plywood on it. Oh, you need more signal. You need more.
Yes. Interior designer brings in some piece of furniture that screws the signal up, and there you go.
or they add it onto your job midway through it, and you have no 2-hour pathway to run your cabling, and you have to buy something called dragon skin that costs $300 a foot to put in, and you have to run. So yeah, there's just things you learn. Let's put it that way.
We had a whole effort here with DAS, and I'm sure Justin can speak on behalf of that. But
I was the ERCs and DAS guy for a while, because I was going first one to go through it, because they started dropping the hammer on it. I was like, you need this, you need this, you need this, and yeah. So
yeah,
not everywhere yet, but it's coming.
Yep.
So.
And one thing I want to mention, and this is especially pointed at Nanad or any of you that have professional now Bluebeam licensing, there's always the opportunity to, if your company allows it, if you're working for a company, but there's always the opportunity to do consulting work in those areas that you have a specialization in. So just something to consider, not every company is going to have BIM or, virtual design or, scheduling or Bluebeam. And so you can get some extra income stream doing some consulting work sometimes on the side, when you have knowledge in these other softwares. Mm-hmm.
All right. Who's ready for some Bluebeam?
Bluebeam.
All right. So this is probably the first time I'm going to do a real live demo where I don't know what's going to go wrong. But if it does, that's real life, like a lot of these things that we find when we're out in the real world, there's not going to be a subject matter expert of Bluebeam next to you, right? There's always someone else over there that knows something, or you'd end up have to Google something and find out how something works, right? And so you guys are going to be my Google in case I stumble. And I'm in good hands here, but I do hope that everything works out. What I'm going to talk about now is setting up a Bluebeam project, and then maybe share a little bit of best practices. A lot of you might already know how to set something up, but I'll tell you now, I picked up a couple of weeks ago, there was an Orange County bug event held virtually, and they talked about the very same thing. And I listened in on that. They have the recording, and I'll tell you, I picked up maybe 4 new things from that session that I did not know about. And that's the beauty about going to these webinars or just having like bug in your group. There's always going to be something that you're going to learn. So hopefully I learned from you guys, and hopefully I can kind of share something that you don't know as well. Okay, so we're gonna do something new. I'm gonna create a project from scratch, so strap on your seatbelts, I guess. We'll see how this works. All right, I'm gonna share my screen here, so I'm not gonna toggle between different things. Let me know once you guys see Bluebeam. You can see I was kind of getting nervous earlier. I was like, I gotta make sure this works first, okay? So I did some demo here. I'll keep this in my back pocket in case things go awry.
And we can see it, okay,
Okay.
RJ.
Perfect, perfect. All right. So where do I start? Some settings. Now, on a design review, I think at one point in your careers, you're going to have to do some sort of design review, especially if you're in a company that specializes in design builds, where a GC would contract out a team of designers under them. And maybe it's the GC that would run sort of this design review process. And what a design review is you can think of it as a page turn or a page flip back in the day, where you go and you review the drawings and see if it's constructible, or see if it meets the design criteria by the owners, right? And so what's beautiful about Bluebeam is that you have this platform that can centralize that information. And what we'll show later with Bluebeam Session is that you can mark up at the same time and have that information come back to you in real time. And so this is going to be an interactive session. So I'm going to send in some links so you can join the session. I'm going to send in some templates so you can apply it on your end. So let me know when things don't come up, and then we can kind of work it out as we go. Okay. So I'm going to do first is I'm going to just check out my preferences here on review. What I usually suggest people is that, I don't know if you do this now, but under user, it usually defaults to something that I don't know why it defaults that way, but I end up just creating this name, right? Especially if you're in a multi-team environment, you want to know when you're marking things up, you want to know who's marking it up. You know, it's not just your last name or an abbreviation. So if you guys do want to follow along, feel free. You know, if you guys can do this on your setting, because later on when we start marking up, we want to see who's marking up, and I'm going to show a little bit of why that's important. Okay. Let me know if someone is following along and they're falling behind. I'll go ahead and step back a little bit. This is one thing I learned from that session that I did not do before, but under, if I remember, there you go, tools, markup. I never knew there was an auto size text box and call out markups. So that's usually unchecked. I checked it and it changed my life forever. So hopefully you guys see the value in that. If you don't do that already, try this out. It's pretty useful. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of settings here that you guys know more than me, so I'm not going to pretend that I know them. I'm just going to go ahead and skip to the next thing that I want to show you. So once that's done, I'm going to go ahead and go to profiles. If you guys want to raise your hand here and see, have you guys used or have you guys edited your own profiles before? You just raise your hand here or use that little.
Yeah, I have my own profile.
Okay.
It's Inforn. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So awesome. So I will do just a quick demo of what that can look like. And basically what a profile is it's sort of this setup that you have where you have your tool chest the way that you want it, right? You can have it. Let me just go in there. So you go to profiles, do manage profiles. You can see that out of the box, you'll have, I think I'm not sure about profile, but review, advanced. And this changes the layout of your Bluebeam screen, right? I built one specifically for design build, design review. And when I selected that, it came out with, this is sort of the setting that I had. I updated my tools to show up like this. And I specifically called it design build review. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go back to there. Profiles, manage profiles. I'm going to go and click on one of them. And since I already created this one, I'm just going ahead and modify it. Oops. All right, you know what? Let's see what we can do. Modify. Profile already exists. Modify. What I can do is, let's do this. Let's see if it works. I'm gonna delete it. It's probably gonna delete my layout. All right, we'll start here, like I said. All right, so what I'm gonna do is under manage profiles, I'm gonna go ahead and add, and I'm gonna call it Fresno State profile design DB team. Actually, design review, design build, design review, and hit OK. Okay. And what that does is, since I already have this tool chest there, I'll show you guys how to build this out after. But for now, I'm going to leave it as a Fresno State DB design review profile. What I'll do now is I will go into the tool chest. And typically, if you guys have another profile set, I'll show you guys how that looks. You'll see that it changes the look, right? Certain windows are closed, certain tabs are closed. And if I go back here, I'll go ahead and go back to Fresno State. You'll see that I have these sort of updated tool chest. And I'll show you guys why it's created this way. When you go to tool chest, click on manage tool sets. And this is where you can start building out your tool set that's specific for this profile. In this case, what I did was I created 3 tool tests for mechanical, structural, and architectural. I'm going to create one here just for the sake of showing those who have not updated a tool set or created one. I'll go ahead and add one. And I'm going to say Fresno State Plumbing. Oh, shoot. And I hit OK. I'm gonna save it to this default folder. You can save it to anywhere where you'll remember it. I'm just gonna leave it here for now. I'll hit save. Okay. You'll see now that, let's see, hit OK. You'll see that at the bottom here, if I can move this, you'll see that there's a Fresno State Plumbing added to this tool chest, right? Now it's empty. Typically, what I'll do is I'll start drag dropping tools that I use a lot and have it as part of my tools chest for the plumbing team. Now, I don't like how it doesn't have a dash. So I'm a little picky about that, but you can go ahead and I'm not sure if I can change it. I think I can modify it. So if I'm going to go back to tool chest, manage tool sets, I hope I can change it, modify. Looks like I can. So I can just go back and change that. Okay, you'll see it's added that dash. There's an extra space. I'll let that pass for now. What you can do now is you can actually drag and drop these tools from one place to the next. I can't do it all at the same time, which I wish I can. But what I'll do is I'm gonna drag these individually. Okay. And I'll show you guys why it's made this way. This particular color coding is another trick that I picked up from that OC bug, and I'll tell you guys why it's that way in a little bit. I'm going to change that look to detail. And then from this point, I'm not going to do this now, but you can change this to plumbing all the way down. I'm not going to do that right now since we're not going to look at plumbing drawings later anyway, but I just wanted to show you guys that trick for now. Any questions so far on that? Or any tricks you guys can share with me on how to make that go faster? All right, cool. So after you built out this tool chest, what you can do is save it. I think I'm able to save this one. That way it locks in this new setting. One way to check is I'm going to go ahead and go to review. And then I'm going to change it back to my Fresno State DB design review and make sure that my tool chest shows up with plumbing. So perfect, it worked. Awesome. All right, so that's kind of, this sort of is part one of setting up the document. Now the second part is statuses. I'll just show you guys that you can update or manage a status on a document. Okay, let me see if I can do that now. Let me open this. I'm not going to talk about the project yet, Bluebeam project, because we're sort of in the setup page. So we're kind of assuming that this PDF file is not in the project. It's just sort of in your local drive. So under this status column, I'm going to check it out real quick. We'll go back to that later. So once you have a document open, you can go ahead and go to status and manage status. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar or know that you can update status here for any comment. So in this case, what I did was I created 3 types of, they call it state models. But within state models, you can go ahead and add different statuses based on what is within this model. In this case, I created a model for a design team. So let's say this is the design team going in here. When they create a markup, they have the options of creating status states for each of these, right? The general contractor, ball and court submitted. We'll look at that more later on. I'm going to add one here just to show you guys. I'm going to put an owner. And I want to add some status states here. And I'm just going to say approved or rejected. Okay. All right. So that's the second setup that we want to look at during this process. We're kind of conditioning this particular document to accept, to have these sort of built-in features within it before we get started. I'm going to go ahead and export this profile. That's because I want to share this with you guys, because this is something that's part of the interaction, is that you'll be able to import this to your system and use the setup the way that I have it, right? And that's typically what's done in projects, is that you know, it's not a BIM manager, it's probably a design manager or design coordinator sort of setting this up, right? So I'll go ahead and because I'm gonna forget where I put this, I thought I have one here, OneDrive. Forgive me that I use CSUF. I don't think that's the abbreviation for Fresno, right? That's a Fullerton.
It's
abbreviation.
Fullerton. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, sorry.
We'll
but-
forgive you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and open that. I think I can I don't know if I can drop and drag here on Zoom on the chat. Can I do that? What's the best way of sending this to you guys? I'm going to try the chat. Oh Lord, help me. Let's see.
Yeah, it looks like you could attach a file in the chat.
Okay, cool. For everyone.
Yeah, you might have to go through the chat to attach
Okay.
it. You can.
Then for
I think
got
if you go to the little 3 dots, it
Yeah.
should, yep.
I found it. I found it. It's gonna work. Just let me know. I'm gonna attach it right now and let me know once you guys get it.
Yep, it showed up in the chat.
Okay, perfect. All right, now to import it, you know, once you guys save it to your local drive or wherever you want to save it to, it's as simple as going to profiles under the review tab, manage profiles, import. And then you should be able to look for your file somewhere wherever you saved it, and then go ahead and save and open it. And it should now be an option for you to use. So when that's done, and let me know if you guys need some time to catch up for those that are following. Once you select that, you should be able to now have this tool chest as an option.
RJ, you can also open it just as a file and it'll automatically import to
Oh,
Revit.
sweet. Okay, cool. Thank you. All right. Thanks for that tip, Louise. Any questions there before we go on to the actual Bluebeam project now? So what we did right now is pretty much just condition this particular document. I use this one that I have to create these samples, but later on, after I put this file on Bluebeam project, you'll see that since you've already acquired the template, that it's gonna be, you'll be able to apply it here on the Bluebeam project. So now we're gonna go and actually, I'm gonna check this back in. Now we're going to go into the Bluebeam project. Now, Bluebeam project, for those that don't know, it acts like a file server where you can store files all in the cloud, the Bluebeam, cloud environment. And what that does is that you're able to share and work on those files almost at, I don't want to say at the same time, because there are sort of these gatekeeping methods where you're only able to check out documents. That way it protects its version from being overwritten, right? So now I'll go ahead and demonstrate how to create a Bluebeam project. All right. So I'm not sure what version of Bluebeam you have, but I think I did not have that as my option here. That's okay. I can always go. So whatever, yeah, so on that profile that I had, I did not list studios. I didn't have an option there for studio, but that's okay. You can always toggle back to one that's, a safer one, and then we can go toggle back to the other profile later on. What I want to just show you is go ahead and click on the studio here over at the left-hand side. And I want you to, there's two tabs you're going to see here. This one's for projects and one for session, right? And I will make sure that you're signed in to the right server, signed into the right account. You'll see that you're connected online by this symbol. So I'll go ahead and click on add. I'm gonna create a new project. I'm gonna call this Fresno State DB demo. All right, now it's gonna splash you into this screen. Before we start adding files, I want to show you a couple ways on how you can add people, invite. So I'm gonna go ahead and there's a couple ways, right? You can type or paste your emails, or add it from a group. It'll connect it. I'm not sure how this works. I think this is within your organization, so they're not gonna apply here. But what we can also do is copy project invitation. And this is actually a better method because some companies filter out, emails from software companies. So usually it might go to a spam box. Doing it this method where you copy the project invitation, you can now send it using your own account, depending where you work. If you're working out for an employer, you'll be able to use their account, which are not usually blacklisted on any email servers. And it assures that those people will get that email, right? So what I'll do is I'll throw this in the chat, and whoever has this link should be able to access that, be able to go in there, right? So let me know once you get it, and if somebody can test that out and make sure that it works. And while that's happening, I wanted to show you guys this project settings. In project settings, this is where you can grant certain people to come in and depending on their permission level, it will allow them to gain access to the files, right? So in this case, I'm gonna go ahead and just make everybody, I'm just gonna allow everybody for full access because I trust everyone here. Typically, you probably don't want to do that, especially if you're protecting information if you're protecting certain files to not have any editing capabilities. You want to make sure that you can create groups for that. So in this case, since we're already doing this, I can create a, oops. Let's see if this lets me. You can create an admin that has full control, or I think, let me see if it lets me do. Oh, I can go back to the attendees and then only allow attendees to have certain capabilities or permission levels to work on those files. Okay. Any questions on that, or does anyone any update? See if they're able to go in and access the project.
I'm unable to, RJ. It says projects does not exist.
Ooh, okay. Let's try that again. Full control, folder permission. Go ahead and read, write, delete. Apply. And I'm going to send out that copy again. Then let me know, everyone, if you guys are able to.
Yeah, it's not working for me either. This is a project, right? Not a session.
Correct. It's a
for
project.
student. Okay.
Yeah, I just changed one of the last settings there. I can change, so hopefully that works in this next one. It should be the same link. Oops. Okay, there you go. Yeah, pretty much granted everybody. Yeah, I had the restrict users box there, so that was why. Let me know if you guys, Louise and Matt, if you guys.
Yeah, I'm on it now.
Okay, perfect. Oof. I was getting nervous there. I would have ended my presentation. All right, cool. So now that we know that works, awesome. Next thing is uploading files, and there's a best practices here in that what I've seen people do is they would just create folders, a folder structure from scratch on Bluebeam. If you've been doing this for a long time, or if you've done this, if you know that you're going to be doing this a lot more, what I do suggest as a best practice is create a template on your Windows, right? So within this template, I'm just going to rename this Fresno State. I hope it lets me change it. Perfect. So I just wanted to show you that if you have a template going, then you can start adjusting, you can start adding folders here and renaming it. That way there's some sort of structure within your folders. And it's a lot faster here than doing it individually on Bluebeam. So that's something that I've learned, which makes it saves time, right? So what I'll do is just for an example, I'll go ahead and upload a folder. I'm going to click on Fresno State project to template, select folder. And once I hit OK, you'll see that Bluebeam is going to populate it automatically. Okay. So now you don't have to manually, and this can be applied on every new Bluebeam project. So you don't have to create it from scratch. So this template works. Your template is going to be different from mine, depending on where you work, right? Depending on your workflow. So don't assume that this is how it's named on your projects. Just wanted to share that with you guys.
So for example, like say we've got the competitive teams or something, you know, they get an RFP and we've got like the drawings and we've got the, you know, RFP documents, we've got, you know, maybe templates that we're using, and then we have you know, our project folder, and then we have our schedule, and then we have our, you know, estimate and our safety plan. So you're saying to do that structure of all of the file trees in like
Windows.
in Windows and then pull it over in one full swoop.
Yep.
Interesting.
That's what I was pushing for our team too, Christy. Except
Yeah.
we would just do it in Google Drive, and then be able to pull it into a flash drive in one swoop.
Right. That's pretty awesome. Nifty trick there, RJ.
Yeah, I learned it recently. A lot of these, like I said, you know, you're stuck or you've been doing one way, and then you learn of something new, and you're like, "Well, that's
A
awesome."
lot faster.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. All right.
That will help us a lot, actually.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna go ahead. I'm not gonna use this file structure. I just did it for this, for the sake of sharing that with you. I do want to go ahead and I'm gonna go and let's see what's the best way. I'm gonna go ahead and open a file. So now we're sort of in the scenario where I'm a PE or superintendent, whoever from the project team, and I get a set of drawings, right? So I get a set of drawings from an email. I save it to my Google Drive, Ignite, whatever, SharePoint, box, whatever it is, we get it. And this is how it looks like. And let's say, yeah, I'm gonna go back one folder. And I extracted this from a project. We're gonna get 12 sheets. It's not gonna be 12 on your project. It's probably gonna be 100, 1,000, whatever, right? And it's all just lumped into this mess where it's like no bookmarks, nothing. And you're like, what the heck? How do I organize this, right? And you guys probably know this already, but there's a thing called bookmarks and thumbnails. And I forget the order I want to do this, but if you do get a file like this, what you can do is create thumbnails first, right? And to do that, we want to create page labels. And page labels will help you organize this a little bit later. So what I'll do is go ahead, instead of bookmarks, I don't have bookmarks on there, which is a pain. So you even have to create your own bookmarks. But first, I'm going to go ahead and do thumbnails. I'm going to go create a page label. I'm going to use a page region. You guys know how to use this already? Yes.
Yeah,
No.
I've used it before, but it's kind of hairy.
Yeah,
Okay.
same.
Okay. We'll see if it works. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. Choose a rectangle that contains text. Oh, you know what? I might have done that the opposite way. I don't remember. Yes, I did opposite way. I think what we can do first is create a bookmark. Let's forget what I said earlier. I think I'm going to do this first. Go ahead, page select, create a bookmark. I'm going to go ahead and highlight the title block. That's your first region, and you'll see a preview there. I'm going to create I'm going to put up space and then add another region. I'm going to click on the sheet title. And then now that's how it looks. If you're not happy with how that looks, you want to put some space or a dash or something. I'm not sure if there's a limitation or a constraint here with what kind of character you can use, but I'm going to go ahead and use a dash and hit OK since I like that format. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And it looks like it works. And let's look at our thumbnails. Our thumbnails are not set up either, but what we can do is we can go ahead and create page labels depending on the bookmarks, right? Since we already created it, and hit OK, and then bam, done. And now it's a little bit neater, a little bit more, it makes sense. You can read it from, from a high level. But let's take it a step further here. I don't know if you guys have created nested bookmarks, but it's a great way to organize your drawings. It's manual, but it sure, it makes it super easy to organize and to view. And to do that, you might have a better way of doing this. This is the way I do it, is I would go ahead and add a bookmark before. And I'm going to go ahead and type in this case, M is mechanical. what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight these M sheets. These are M sheets here. And it's kind of tricky dropping it into mechanical. So it's almost like, there you go. See, now you'll see that it's nested, right? I'm going to do the same thing for structural. That's not going to work. Let's do that again. Add a bookmark, add before. I'm going to call it structural.
So it's almost like you're putting a WBS together, like
Sure. Yeah. If this was a spec or you can organize it. Not a lot of people do this because they rely on the naming to set it in order. That's fine too. But just kind of showing you guys.
It's a little cleaner.
Yep. In architectural. And a trick I learned this year is that, oops. I didn't know you can change the color of these. You go ahead and select it, right click. It was actually the interiors team that liked to color it, so that kind of made sense. So you can change the color to, whatever you want to change it to. Makes it look nice, I guess. Just an option for everybody here to see. Don't know how useful that is, but it's kind of cool, right? All right, great. All right, so that's one option you can do to organize the sheets. Now, let's see. Now I'm ready to save this. I'm gonna use my profile here. I'm gonna go ahead and go to just make sure I can still pull it up. Everything's still there. I'm using my DB design review profile. I'm gonna go ahead and save this as, I'll save it back into my folder here. I'm just gonna say Fresno State. Keeping an eye out here for time. Design review demo. All right, so now it's saved locally in our drive. And the quickest way that I know that you can save it to a project is, I think I'm okay with add to open studio session, which we don't have one. We do have a project. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my project. I'm going to go ahead and click on the parent folder here. And somewhere here on the top where I have this Zoom window blocking me, so I can go ahead and upload files. I'm going to go ahead and upload a file. I'm going to go down here in this prompt. You guys probably know this already, but I'm going to head and open the files that are, or add the files that are currently open and hit OK. And you'll see that this file now lives in the Bluebeam cloud. So now this is accessible for everybody, not just locally, right? When I click on the file, you'll see that there's a lock up here. That means that you can't edit this file. So you'll see that all your markup tools are grayed out. You can only do a snapshot. For someone to edit this, they'd have to click on this lock or up here and say checkout. Now your markup tools are available to use. Okay. Once you're done with using this file, best practice is to just check it back in. Right. We can add a comment. Let's say you change something and you want to just add that comment here, go ahead and do that. But I won't in this case, I'll just check it back in. All right, we're going to go and speed up a little bit here. What I'm going to do is I want to make this available for in a Bluebeam session. And what we'll do in the Bluebeam session is have everybody be in that environment and then start marking things up, correct, right? So what I'll do is the quickest way is I'll go ahead and I'm gonna, let's see, open studio project tab. It's locked right now, and I think that's why I can't check it out. So I'm gonna go ahead and open it real quick. I'm gonna check out, and then I'm gonna add it. I'm gonna right click. Not letting me add it to a studio session. So there's another way if you get stuck like I am right now. I think the best way to is to create first. There should be typically you would be able to upload this to a Bluebeam session, but I can't seem to make that work right now. So, but there is another way. I'm gonna go ahead and open up Bluebeam Studio again. And you'll see right here, Bluebeam sessions. You can create one here. Okay, in this case, what I'll do is I'll create a brand new one just for the sake of showing you guys. And to do that, I'm gonna go ahead and let me just leave this one. You'll see that there's a plus here, and I'll go ahead and do a new session, Fresno State Design Review. Okay, now you can look at it, you can add the files now and say either add manually, and you'll be able to look for it in your folder. And let's just try this one, add open files. This looks like the file that we have open, our demo. I'm gonna go ahead, I'm not gonna restrict it by email address. I'm just gonna make it open for everybody. Hit OK. It's gonna create that session. And it's gonna add that file. It's gonna ask me to invite people here through the same way that we had earlier. What I'm gonna do is copy this session invitation, and I'm gonna put it up on the chat for us to, for all you guys that wanna join. And I do encourage you guys to join in the last few minutes here. All right, so I see Louise signed on. Okay. So now what happens in the Bluebeam session with this document, it locks it in place. You can't add the statuses anymore. It's pretty much whatever was built in that document like we had earlier, right? You can still, however, pull up your profile here. Right. And you can see we're on the Bluebeam session because of this icon. I'm gonna cancel. So let's do a little bit of role playing here for those that are joining. We're on a design build project. You typically have designers that are on a project as well as subcontractors. And what the tool chest does now is, because we set it up this way, if you are an architect or if you are a structural engineer or a mechanical engineer, you have sort of these tool sets already built in for you. You know, it has the settings already, the color, the font. So you're ready to go. You don't have to think about what you need to pick out from your markup list there. So this makes it easy for the design team to start marking up, as well as it creates this uniformity within the project, right? So if you are on this sheet, you can start tagging things. I can see you guys are using whoever. So yeah, feel free to mark it up, but I just wanted to show you guys that, you know, if you are in that sort of setting where you need that control, you need that uniformity, this option will give you that. And the reason why it's color coded this way is, I'll show you that later. Typically, what I've done in the past, what a lot of people have done in the past, is that they would have different color for each trade, right? And what I learned 2 weeks ago is that this method is not necessarily better, but because of the custom statuses that we built in, we can actually change the color based on the review status. And in the design review, sometimes the review status is more important than the color of each trade, right? And so like in this example, if we're all on this sheet and I'm the mechanical engineer, and you'll see that too, is because how we built out the tool chest, you can see that this is structural making that comment, right? It looks like that's Matt doing that call out. And what happens is if I was the designer, so right now, I don't know, Matt, if this was, yeah, so this was this duct is 6 inches narrower. If this goes back to the subcontractor, so basically this is the originator creating this comment. If I was the trade or somebody needs to address this comment, what happens is I see this comment from the engineer, I look at it, and then through the process of updating this detail, I can now say the status is, oh, I'm not sure why. It did not inherit the same file that had the statuses earlier. I'm gonna go ahead and import. Let me see if I can import the status. I don't think I can import it at this point. But that's why I had the backup demo earlier, just for this exact reason. I'm gonna go back to my previous slide earlier, constructability. Oops, view advanced. I'm going to go to my studio session. I'm going to jump out of that session real quick, and I'm just going to go back to another session here from earlier. And what I wanted to show you guys, let me open this real quick. Let me see if this works. Save profiles. Oops, I was going to say design review. Let's see if this works. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and access this test. I hope it works. Oops. Oh yeah, it was not. I think it's because the file that we were using earlier was not the same exact file, and that's why the importance of setting it up first on the sheet is important. Is the status here would be able to, it's going to pick up those status updates that we built in for that particular document. And I think I know why, and that's because the document that I'm using now, it didn't have that custom status. So let me go ahead and go back to, and since we're kind of near the end of the presentation, I think the timing is just right. I just want to make sure this works here. So I'm going to go back to the actual, the same one that you guys are on. I'm going to add the other document that has all that stuff built in. So under documents here, you can go ahead and click on add a file. And the one I was working on earlier is, let's see if this works. That's the demo, 839. I don't think that's the one. I'm not sure if this is the one earlier. Oh, you know what? I think I did delete that one and I did not save a copy. Anyway, that did not work out. But what I wanted to just explain to you guys is this comment here, depending on who is answering, what you can do is, let me just expand this real quick. Get this Zoom window out. There you go. Is what I had liked it to have happen is you'll be able to change the color based on the status. In this case, earlier on, you saw that there was other status that I created depending on who's reviewing it. So let's say I was a contractor and I saw this email, this comment from the design team. What I can do is I can go to a status here. In this case, what you would see is, if it had worked, is you'll see the different types of responses that I can use. So in this case, if this was if I was the contractor replying, I can say that there was one setting there where I said, we need to discuss this, or discussion is needed, right? So what that does is that if and it will change the color. So let's say for this example, it becomes orange. Well, I can't change it now because it's not part of the template. What happens is, based on that status parameter, it's going to change this particular comment to an orange status. And visually, if you're looking at it from a high point of view, if you know that it's orange, that means that next steps, there's extra steps that we need to follow. Like in this case, we need to discuss it further, right? And so what that does is it lets you filter everything based on the status. What you can also do is, under the meeting invites, you see there's a bunch of you guys here. I'm not sure if anybody's added more lists, but what you can do is, since Matt's the only one that has you can right click, you can filter the markups based on that list. So let's say that you're the subcontract, you're the steel detailer, and you have some comments, or a mechanical detailer, and you want to just see the comments from the mechanical engineer. You can go and look for that mechanical engineer here, right click on that mechanical engineer. You can either, and then just filter their markups based on that, right? So if you're reviewing this, it makes it super easy for you to look at what your mechanical engineer is asking you to change or to update. So I'm gonna just do a couple more tags here, just so you guys can see, and then maybe Matt or Luis, if you guys want to add a couple more just random markups there, so we can see the filters working. That'd be great. Go to my tool chest.
And RJ, I just wanted to let you know we have about 5
Yeah.
minutes or so.
Yep, I'll stop here in the next minute or so. You'll see that since I have my filter currently selected here, you'll see that it's only filtering out things that are assigned, or whoever created that's the only person that's being filtered out in this case. What's cool too is, based on this, you can filter your markups based on the subject. And that's why it's important to name these the way that you want it. That way, typically what you'll see is, on a regular session, is you'll see a lot of these call outs. Just, subject is highlight text box. Contextually, you don't know what that means, but if you set it up to a way where it's organized, then you can organize it as such too. So if you want to just look at things that are from the structural engineer, you can filter it out as structural, or you can filter out by page or by author. So there's real value in sort of creating these tool chests first for the document, and then also the status, which unfortunately I wasn't able to make that work, but I hope you're able to still kind of see how that works. I'll go ahead and still make this available offline for you guys until I figure out how to make that status field adjust next time. But that's all I have, guys. If you guys have any questions, let me know. But I hope this has been helpful, and sorry I couldn't get that status field to show up. But that is the value of having a Bluebeam session, where you have this environment where you can click and select markups or add markups. And you'll see here, as whoever's adding the zoom boom there, or is that a crane? You can go ahead. I can't delete their markups, and so that protects the integrity of the document, right? Nobody can delete someone else's markup. Oh, there's the Zoom boom.
Yeah, that's pretty neat for especially on project work, you know, when you're having like say a coordination meeting or something, that you're able to utilize the studio to do that kind of thing. And we've done that sometimes too, especially on our commercial team, RJ, where, you know, we all get in there and say we're developing an RFP and we're making changes and stuff. We get in there and mark it up so that we can make changes. So even though it might not be project work, we still have used Studio in a similar way. So
I mean, I've seen it used for specs, reviewing
Mhm.
specs, right? You can do anything that needs to be reviewed by multiple entities.
people, yeah. Yeah, I would say in some ways Bluebeam's easier because you see everything, where like, I don't know, but we've done it in Google Drive too, and it's like, oh my gosh, I feel like it's a black hole with Google Drive, you know, where it's a little, I don't know, you can see everything right there in Bluebeam.
Right.
Well, very good, you guys. So thank you so much, RJ, for coming tonight and showing us some tips and tricks here and showing us about Revisto and that cool I'm trying to think of what my brain is not working, but that digital BIM model for the Intuit Dome. And so we really appreciate seeing all those cool things, especially on a very large project. We don't get those kind of large projects in the Central Valley, so it's pretty nifty. So on that note, you guys, this is a wrap for our fall 2023 speaker series, and we thank you very much, RJ, for concluding it. And we'll be having another speaker series for those of you that are in here new in the springtime. And so, Justin, you're always welcome to join us if you'd like in Guadalupe. And of course, you know, all the rest of you guys in the spring as well. This is open not only to students, but also professionals. So on that note, thank you very much, you guys. And I hope you have a great evening. And we do have another bug leadership meeting after Thanksgiving on that Tuesday. So we'll see all the leaders there. Okay. Have a great evening, you guys. And I'll stick around if anybody wants to chat about it.